Welcome to the Joyful Nourishment Podcast. This is a podcast about our relationship with food and eating, body image, eating disorder recovery, mental health, and more. I am your host, Lynn Thorstensen, a registered nutrition therapist and body image coach based in the west of Ireland. And I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to the Joyful Nourishment Podcast. And in this episode, I am here with Michelle O Gorman, who is a Wexford native and a master's practitioner in eating disorders. And she offers therapy for those who struggle with poor body image, anorexia, bulimia, binge eating, and disordered eating. And she has a unique insight into eating disorder, having first-hand lived experience, and her own journey brought her on the passionate road to helping others. She has over 15 years experience working in this area. And she works with eating disorders in a holistic setting. So Michelle works with people of all ages, from all walks of life, and she helps them to gain freedom on an emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual level with their eating patterns and turns destructive behaviors around. Michelle brings to each session her own experience of recovery and much more. And she offers sessions both available online and in person in Wexford. And we're going to link to all the places where people can find you in the show notes as well, Michelle. But you are very welcome to be as a guest, I should say, on the Joyful Nourishment Podcast.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And it's always, I think it's just lovely when we can highlight that we actually do have people in Ireland who do this work. Because we were talking off air, kind of like that it is quite challenging and that it feels, everything feels limited in terms of resources within the public system. It's a smaller country with a smaller population, and the need is still great, I think. But, the resources feels limited, and I think it's good to help people know that there are actually probably a good few practitioners who work with people around their eating distress and their relationship with food, eating, and body image.
Yeah, it's like there is, I suppose there is people out there. You just have to, I suppose you need to know where to find them. And some people who are struggling, they don't know where to find them. Or sometimes the doctors they don't know, I suppose, that people like us even exist unless it's word of mouth or to hear local. So it can be very tough, especially for families when they're in crisis and trying to find that support. And I'm a practitioner in eating disorders, and there is actually a few who's based. I know there's some people in Dublin. It's just trying to find them.
Yeah, absolutely. And then for those of us in private practice, sometimes if our SEO on the websites aren't up to scratch, you mightn't show up like in the first page on Google either. So I think a lot of it, I feel like the people who come to me, a lot of it is like word of mouth or like referrals from other practitioners. Somebody comes in and they're like, well, it's not my remit, but actually I know somebody who does do this work. And is that how people tend to find you as well, or what's the...
Yeah, so I'm based in Wexford town. So there's a few secondary schools that I went in and one in particular I went in and done a talk, and then so it's teachers, and then obviously I've worked with adults as well. So it's usually referrals from doctors, word of mouth, nurses, past people I've worked with, and schools. Yeah, so that's usually how people have found me, and some people do find me online as well. They Google in and things like that. So that's where people have come through. You come through the door.
Yeah. That sounds like that's enough. That's plenty of referrals paths to keep you busy.
Yeah. It's there's enough there. So I'm very blessed that I have a very busy practice, and at times a waiting list, which I know is not as helpful. But again, as always, when that happens, I direct people, to their GP and to Bodywise. And obviously having a connection like yourself now as well to refer on to when you are busy. And, I suppose, you know yourself, the sooner that the person gets help and support, the sooner they can recover it. So I think that's really, really important in recovery for even anyone that's listening, that because I suppose what I've heard over the years, you see, I've had a few parents, like I work with any ages, I'm usually from 14 up. But what over the years, parents have come in and say it's got out of hand, and really the parents are saying, I didn't know how to approach it. I didn't know what to say. I was scared it got worse. But really, it's like nipping it in the bud. If you spot it, get help, get support, bring them to the doctor, you know, see what the kind of practitioner, Google. There is support out there, and the sooner the better.
Yeah,
I guess.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, and then I mean, even if people are dismissed, like if they think there is something going on, then trust that and just keep knocking on doors until you find the right person to help you, because there can be things like, oh, I don't work with people with eating disorders, or your weight isn't low enough. But I think whether you're a parent or it's yourself, if you think that things aren't really right, that it shouldn't be this way, if you just keep going until you find the practitioner that is right for you, because they are out there and everybody deserves support, and things will and does get better. So I think
Yeah,
it's just,
like I think like you said, the therapeutic relationship is really important. And I always say to clients, like, it can take up to 20 to 40 weeks, depending on how long they have it. Building up that therapeutic relationship, bringing them in, and I always say, especially when they're younger clients, it's like just having a chat, just getting to know the person, see where they're at. My own probably journey brought me, like, I suppose I was 15 when my eating disorder started. So it was anorexic nervosa. And then that like 16 until 15, 16 until 21. So at 21, that's when I literally died of an eating disorder. I was very underweight, having heart troubles, went to Australia, thought I'd find myself. No, I wasn't the problem. Yous are all the problem. I'm leaving the country. And of course it got worse. And then coming back there, like that was like over to what, 23 years ago. My mom, obviously, my parents weren't in a good place, but it brought me to the doctor, started to do recovery on my own, but there wasn't much within the health system. And I actually, believe it or not, I started with a healer. Again, there wasn't much. Went to a therapist. The therapist at the time gave me a doll. I was like, this doll, like, to play with, wasn't helpful. I was like, I know I'm struggling with anorexic. I don't know why. Please help me. I was so unaware. I was so underweight. I was so unaware of myself, unaware of why I was doing it. I know a lot of the time it's like, I had people come up, look at the state, you sort yourself out. And literally I was very suicidal. Didn't know myself why I had created it, had got so out of hand. And then eventually started to eat somewhat myself, and turned, I suppose, to the holistic level to try and help me and support me. And then a therapist had moved down from Dublin who had an eating disorder, and I started working with her, and she helped me to explore that. And during that time, I gained weight, but turned into a binge eater because I was, started a diet culture. And then I went from being extremely underweight to, I suppose, in our terms, overweight, but I know my body was trying to nourish me. So there was a lot of body changes, which was very uncomfortable. And I'm not going to lie, it took me a good few years to balance that out, to get into what my set point weight is, to trust, to understand the rule of three meals, 3 snacks every 3 to 4 hours, and to nourish myself properly. So a lot has changed when I was doing it. And on some level, it still shocks me when I hear stories how people aren't being supported. But then on other levels, I hear how people are being supported. So there's we are doing a lot better in a country, but there's a lot more to be done. And it's not to blame anyone, but I just feel that the psychoeducation of understanding that it's not about body image, it's more about, the person is trying to survive. There can be trauma there. And this person doesn't have the tools, and they're turning to eating behaviors to help them cope. And I think the more that people are educated about it and understand it, the more people can help and support, and they nip it in the bud, and they're not as scared of it.
yeah, I think so too. And it feels like, for me, we talk about eating disorders are mental illnesses, and I agree with that. And I also think sometimes that's a bit too simplistic. I think about them as biopsychosocial disorders, and that they can present similar, but also quite different for people. And that's not even different within, like, say, binge eating, bulimia, or anorexia nervosa, but also within somebody with a very restrictive eating pattern, the underlying drivers can be quite different. Like, I've seen some people where it was literally kind of a diet that went a bit wrong, because when they were like, their bodies felt like to a certain level of malnourishment, the eating just got much more difficult, and then it just gets more difficult, and you can see when they're better nourished, it actually eases off, which is a bit wild. And then for other people, it's about control, or because life, like you said, you mentioned trauma, things are so out of control that food is very tangible, right? Our bodies are very tangible things as well, that it's like, well, here is something that I can take control of this when I don't have any other control or agency in my life. So it's just, yeah, there's so many things and so many factors, I think, that play into it. And I wonder, is that what then sometimes when you're in a system that is a bit limited on resources and time and people, that this is how we deal with it, and it's like a one size fits all, and you have to fit the box, or otherwise you're the problem, and not the intervention, but there's a little bit
Yeah.
less room for flexibility. And I'm not talking about when it's real crisis where it's like you have to refeed because it's a life or death situation. I'm talking a bit kind of out of that crisis situation where there's a bit more space for maybe exploring different things that might work for that particular person.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's why I think, that therapeutic relationship is really, really important. And I always say to clients, and I'm sure you do, like, this is like, I'm always honest. No, look, we need to have that therapeutic relationship and build it up. But you're looking at, depending on how long you've had it, you could be looking at 20 to 40 weeks or above, so that we can really dig deep into understanding, because it is about the food, but it's not about the food.
Exactly.
There's so much layers, and then it depends on that person, their conditioning, their lifestyle, the family unit, the family systems, what's happening there, what's the relationships with food around other people, is that nourishing them, is that not working for them? And then you have a dynamic that there might be people around them dieting, or their family members, and how can they support themselves in their own journey. So it's not just go eat, you'll be fine. There's so much more emotional level, diet culture, where they're coming from, even in their cognitive function, if it's has been damaged due to undereating or binge eating or drug abuse. That's why everyone wants the quick fix. We're living in a society that everyone wants a quick fix, and real recovery is not like that. And like, I hold my hand up, years ago I wanted a quick fix, but actually that caused me to go more into the eating disorder, because I was looking on the outside. And it takes a while, it even takes a while for clients to understand the work that you're doing, and for them to go and practice it and revisit it. But it can be done slowly. And obviously it's creating that space in the room where they can feel that they can, I suppose, when anything comes up, that they can say it to you, and that they know that you'll hold a space and nourish them as best that you can.
Yeah, and there's no judgment. Like,
Yes.
I had somebody recently that I've been working for quite a long time, and he's been doing well enough, and then things sort of slip back a little bit because there's been more pressure in life, and maybe less capacity to really focusing on making sure that there's adequate food intake. And then they said on this particular occasion, you know what? I'm not actually sure. I think I'm fine. I'm not sure I want to be like pushing forward. And at the same time also feeling like I know there is a part of me who doesn't want to stay here because it's just fine. Like, it's just I'm managing, but I'm not maybe thriving in the way. I'm still not feeling free enough, but I'm also quite tired of, like, I'm not sure that I want to be. It's just easy to not be. And we all get like that. It's like, and if you've been working on something for a long time, and you've gone through a lot of the hard stuff, and it is fine, because it's much better than being, catastrophic or in a really bad place. And then it's like, well, and where is it, like, is fine good enough? Is it enough? Do we stay here, or do we keep going into like a full recovery? And I think that's why it takes so much, it takes time, right? Because it
Yeah.
is sort of and things maybe go back. And because at the same time as you work in recovery, people are also living their lives, right? They're
Yes.
out in the world, they're going to school or college or getting a job or working or managing family members. Like you're also living your life while you're now trying to like push forward out of maybe just the bare minimum or just about surviving.
Yeah, and it's hard. It is tough, and I suppose it does take time. And like some clients, like we will do this so many weeks, and then like we'll revisit what's working and what's not working. And sometimes we might pause for a few weeks, and then we'll go, all right, we'll come back and we revisit it as well. And I think that's why, and I know I keep repeating it, but I think that's so important to build up that therapeutic relationship, to get to know the client's needs, right? Where are we? And what do you need? Do you need some other support? Do you need to pause it? What's the next step? And I always find anyway that as you have that therapeutic relationship, you'll know anyway with them. You kind of
Yeah.
know yourself, okay, where they're at, where they are. But yeah, like it does take time. And but I again, as I say that, like I've had parents, through COVID who spotted it straight away and brought in their teenager, and straight away, because it was caught so early, it was dealt with. It's when it's not, and it allows to be wired into the brain and the neurons, it gets stuck in there, and it's like rewiring it. So it's like, you could be in it for 5 years, and it might take you a good few years to unlearn that conditioning and rewire that brain and understand it. And then obviously, which is normal, you're going to have relapses. But again, like, yourself, they're learning curves, and it's to give, really, I find, well, it's to learn in self-compassion when you're going through those stages, to slow down, self-compassion, and to just go really, really slow and really, really gently, and to be able to hold that space for them.
Yeah, yeah. And I think as well, I mean, do you see many adults like do you work majority of people with like restrictive eating disorders like anorexia nervosa or bulimia, or do you work with a good few binge eating clients? So even though I also think that's usually a strong restrictive component to that too, but
Yeah.
people tend to have preferences.
Yeah, I suppose if you were to name it in the DSM manual, like mine would be probably at the moment, because it fluctuates. At the moment, it would be more anorexia nervosa restrictive, but I do have clients who are binge eating through restrictive behavior and bulimia. I'm at right now, I can say that there's no one in crisis, which is good, that they're in a good place, but there still has a lot of work to be done. And because obviously if you're dealing with crisis, it's very, everyone has to be on board. We're talking about the doctor, dietitian, everything's there where we are. But usually it's that, and sometimes it ebbs and flows. But I have worked, so I have at the moment, yes, there's some clients, anorexic nervosa, which would be more, but I do have binge clients, and I have some bulimic clients. But actually, as I'm saying, they're struggling with bulimic, they actually it's improved immensely. So yeah.
Yeah.
And yourself?
I think I think for me, because of my own lived experience with binge eating, I'd probably be more drawn to working with those, even though I do work with people also with restrictive eating disorders, like anorexia, or I have some bulimic clients as well. But usually, because I'm working solely online and I only work with people from 16 and up, I'm quite select with teens. They have to be out of any medical crisis. Like I wouldn't take somebody on because I don't have the support network to support somebody like that unless they came with their team already and they were looking for an additional nutrition person to join that team. So people would have to be like medically stable and then but still working through the challenges around restricting and adequate feeding, and how do we make that happen, and what are we noticing when we're not eating enough, and getting all of those things on board. But I think my comfort zone for sure is working with people around binge eating. That's probably I'm more comfortable in that, because for me, because it's more related to my own lived experience. So that's yeah, that probably helps. And maybe I've done more focused training in that space as well. But again, for me, it's like coming back to what you were talking about, Michelle, it's like the therapeutic relationship and the rapport that feels most valuable, I think, with any person, which is why I'm like, I don't say when like you do marketing and people are like, well, focus on this type of person. It's like, it's whatever we feel that there is a connection or rapport that we can build on. That's the person that is the ideal client for me. And hopefully you fit the therapist or nutrition professional for them, because what I've also been learning that the research is saying that most interventions are proficient, but they're only as good as the therapeutic relationship. That is at the core of the healing intervention.
I think it's so important because I don't know how you do, but I like anyone who wants to work with me, like they might contact me or they might book online, but I'll always go, okay, straight away, can we talk on the phone for 50 minutes? That 15 minutes, I don't know, I just feel it in my body. Yeah, I can work with him or no. It's
Yeah,
just, I think that's really important. Not that you don't want to work with them, but if there's a lot of other stuff going on, or you have to trust that feeling in your body. But just as I'm saying, I'm saying that I work with a lot of anorexic clients, like stay there a month ago, or a few clients had finished up who ladies were in their 40s and their 50s who had been chronic dieting, binge eating, had gained a lot of weight and were severely low mood and even suicidal due to toxic diet culture. I think that, if you don't mind
terrible.
me mentioning that as well,
Yeah,
because that's so important. There's a lot of, we say, 25 plus, 30 plus who are out there struggling in this diet culture, and they think there's something wrong with them. And I mean, some of these ladies come in and that was it. They had lost all hope in life because this obsession with food, their weight was getting worse. They were going to these diets, constantly trying things. And of course, obviously the body was changing because of that and gained more weight. And I think it's important to highlight that there's people out there who's suffering, who don't have a diagnosis of either eating disorder, don't fit the criteria, but they are still struggling, that they deserve help. And again,
absolutely.
it's a massive out there. And they think there's something wrong with them because they're not doing these diets. But also to help support them, which is like, again, it's the rule of three snacks every 3 to 4 hours, basing it on fats, protein, and carbs, real good food, balancing your blood sugar levels, because if your blood sugar levels are stable, you're stable, and then allowing the body to go into whatever its set point weight for them with their lifestyle. And then if they want to do movement, healthy movement for them, not an obsession, not, and let go of I need to lose weight. This idea of I need to lose weight, it's so toxic that can drive people fully blown into an eating disorder or fully blown into binging or weight gain. And there's nothing wrong with weight gain, but weight gain that is, I suppose, is harming them mentally because they're not learning how to nourish their body properly. So I think like people like yourself, Lynn, showing people, like I do nutrition interventions for eating disorders. It's like it shows them how to balance their blood sugar levels and how to eat properly. Where diet culture, this toxic, and there's so much stuff on social media, it's toxic. Anything that takes out food groups, like I suppose I work from a level of like there is no good or bad food, there's just food. Unless you are actually allergic to it and it's going to cause you to die, all food is good food.
Yeah.
And then learning to balance your blood sugar levels. And what does that look like? You maybe 20 to 30 grams of protein, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, fiber, nourishing your body. So I always base it on, have you eaten enough? Have you had your fats, protein, carbs, and are you satisfied? And
Yeah.
listen,
Yeah. And I
I think,
think within that and the cohort of people you talk about, I think it's interesting as well because it kind of goes in waves. I think with the type of clients that you get, like all of a sudden you have, lots of people in their 20 to 25 or a few teens. And then I think when I first started off and when I was working more like in nutrition, general nutrition and nutrition interventions, so I would have seen a lot of those particular people that you're talking about, even though they might have come in at the time maybe like looking to lose weight, or they've been told like my blood sugars are high or my cholesterol is high or they've had digestive issues. But I think now in hindsight, when I'm more focused in this space, looking at these would be women in their probably 40s, 50s and up, like this is maybe 10 years ago. So who would have been going to these slimming clubs regularly, weekly, and actually like a lot of fair foods in there too. It's like, well, this is bad and that's bad, and I can drink unlimited amount of diet soda or soft drinks because, well, it doesn't have any points or any calories, but it still has an impact. And we're also filling ourselves up with liquids, which doesn't give the body nutrients. And our bodies are wise. Like, they're not, you can't treat them that easy. It comes back in other ways. And it is like, people maybe don't, like you said, they don't think that, well, you definitely don't have an eating disorder because you're nowhere near the stereotype. And it also, I feel like people have grown up in diet culture, but it was never talked about the way we're starting to talk about it now, right? It's like, I have a current client. It is that sort of fits quite well with what you're talking about. And this kind of even just started to think about that. Actually, my body is never going to be a size 10 or 12. I'm not built that way, but I've been trying, and also I've been trying to do that for the last 25 years. It hasn't worked. It doesn't want to stay there. It doesn't want to be there. And thinking about, there's loads of things that this person is like, eating lots of good quality foods, homegrown, home cooked, all of the things, and then still holding on to a lot of, yeah, but that's bad, and I shouldn't be doing that. And then because it's really bad if I have, two biscuits. I'm trying to be good, and then you have the two, and then maybe you have a third one, and now like it's all gone haywire. So I keep eating the
Yeah, that
package.
blownish, the black and white
Yeah,
thinking.
it's all gone, and I've blown. And I think there's a lot of people. And I'm actually curious about you. I want to ask you this question next, Michelle, like how you feel about the using the terms eating disorders or disordered eating, or moving towards like using terms like eating distress. But just for this, like I think there's people who are talking about in that cohort from maybe 45, 40 to and above 60, 70, who have grown up in this, and maybe even they had a more restrictive or even a diagnosable eating disorder at teens, but this is just morphed. But even if people didn't, they'd be just chronically dieting for 20, 30 years, on and off slimming, whereas lost weight, gained weight, lost it again, gained some more over time. And just, and like there's a lot of like, how do we nourish ourselves? But there's a lot of unlearning all the diet culture stuff and all the shit we've internalized that isn't ours. It isn't a me problem. It's a cultural problem, Yeah. Sorry, that was me in my soapbox.
But no, I totally, yeah. And it's like, like my oldest client I ever had was 70, and that was a lot of unlearning, and she knew it, and it was her partner who said it. And like I have another client who would be like retired, and high functioning job, a lot of demands, turn to ED behaviors, and only because family members have pointed out, they brought the person into the office, and I'm like, okay, you're fully blown and restricted, but this person has been doing it for years and thought it was okay. And I'm not judging him, but I'm like, oh no, they're all eating disorder behaviors. But because there was a lot of demands on this person and a high job, that's how they coped within that. And now they don't have that job, but they're, after doing it in a retirement, have turned it to other things. So like the person is, after obviously taken in the consideration and the rule of three, and we're still working together. But like, we're talking about a good 40 years here of conditioning. And only because other family members and longevity want to be around, this person has like really in a few weeks going, oh yeah, I need to do this, because their anxiety was high, but they thought that this is who they were. But I'm like, no, this is like due to demands that you have been restricting for years. And they're sleeping better, they're doing all these things better, but they just thought that that's who they were. And it was actually went back to the mother, which it does happen. We're not blaming, but it happens for a lot of people, the relationship with the food, with the mother, the demands, trying to fit in, trying to be perfect. Like, so it's like an egocentric feature. It makes them feel special. It gives them a sense of control. They're fitting into society, what society seems as normal, but they're struggling. And then they're
Yeah.
passing it down from generation to generation. Not always generation. Some like kids these days are a lot smarter than I was, that people are catching it and they're understanding about body positivity. But I suppose going back to the eating disorder first is eating distress. Like I trained in eating disorders, and I know that's why I have it on my website and my cards. I'm an eating disorder specialist, but I believe that's how people find me. But I believe it's an eating distress, that something is distressing them inside. And that needs to be looked on, where it's a holistic view, where it's mind, body, and spirit, that it's not just about the food, that there's something distressing them, whether that's family, society, changing in their bodies, trauma, changing into schools, changing colleges, getting married. There's something that needs to be looked at, and it needs support in that, so they're not turning to easy behaviors to help them to cope, and that they have the skill set and the tools to express their emotions and to communicate, and that communication is heard as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like the eating distress, like it is about food and it's not about food. And it happens to be it's a way some of that other stress, life stress, is manifesting for this particular person through their relationship with food. And I also think about, like, I was thinking about this recently, like with eating distress, in terms of if our relationship with food is stressful, that is probably something that is, I think that is something that warrants support and attention, because it's something we have to do every day, several times a day for our whole life. So if that is incredibly stressful, which it is for probably more people than we think, um, it's okay to get supported with that. So you don't have to live your whole life with eating being an incredibly stressful act for whatever reason that happens to be. Because like I've had people say, I really wish you could just take a pill so I wouldn't have to do this. And of course you would, if it's really stressful and you have to do it a minimum 3 times, ideally maybe 4 to 6. So like that's a lot of stressful things on top of maybe other life stressors, just so that your physical self is being fed so that you function. There's no way out of it. Like we have to eat,
Yeah, and like I suppose the warning signs are like if you're constantly thinking about food, if you're, weighing food, if you're over exercising, if you're, doing like fastings or diets, if you're always thinking about your body image, like these are all the warning signs of eating disorders or disorder eating. And some people think that they're normal because the society does them, or their mother has done them, or their friends are doing it. But, another friend of mine actually, well, actually, I wouldn't even say, I suppose a colleague who had referred clients to me said that they were with their daughter in a spa, and men were talking about how, oh, they're fine that they restrict, but every now and again they binge on chocolate. Well, it's only every now and again, but they don't eat carbs. And she said, I just took my daughter straight away, because she had attended one of my workshops through anyway, just through work, I suppose. But she said, I just had to take my daughter out of there, because she said, this, I knew it was disorder eating, but there was it was how they were talking about it. They didn't see it as a problem, but yet they were
it's
binging.
normalized.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's normalized very much. And oh, it's okay because I do it every now and again, but I don't eat carbs, obviously, and it's not to put these people down, like they're struggling, they've got communication. What's their trauma? What's coming from them? Were they in a bigger body when they were younger? Did they get bullied and now this is how they control it? When you get to know the client, it's so much deeper than just eat or just reduce to binging. Like they could have been bullied. There's been an effect where now they have this certain body that they fit in. They want to keep it, but they'll keep it at all levels, but they're struggling.
Yeah, because to try to do that and to try to micromanage our bodies for whatever reason usually comes at a very high cost. And like it might be fine, the cost is small for usually in the beginning, or it might even be rewarding, but there tends to be a tipping point at some point where the cost is just too high. Like and if things get really bad, of course you can pay with your life as well. But that it is, right? It's just that because what happens, as you know, and as people who have lived experience know, it's like the more you control, the smaller, even the smaller maybe your body gets, like the smaller your life also gets, because all of a sudden everything just revolves around that. What to eat, what not to eat, how much to exercise, did I earn that? where are we going next? If I'm going out, I can't go out with friends because who knows what I'm going to be get fed there, and I have that's all. Like there is no room for anything else. And then the flip side of that, I think, when you're working with somebody and they're trying to, unlearn a lot of the stuff, you still go out, like you said in your example, you go out in the world, and a lot of this is glamorized or even like normalized that then makes the recovery process harder. I hear
Yeah.
that from some of my clients. It's like, I'm trying to like not engage in these things. And then I hear my work colleagues talking about, or parents that are dieting or a sibling and they're like, yeah, I know it's fine for them. But like, is it fine for them? But like, that's still that person's stuff. But it's like, I have to now not only try to not engage in the stuff that my internal thought process or patterns are telling me I should be doing. I'm then getting it reinforced from the outside that this is what, people should be doing. And that just makes it just a bit harder, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot of mixed messages, and it's not scientific. It's not what our body needs, and it's really about learning respect for well, first of all, it's about self-compassion. What are your values, for life, and nourishment, and how does nourishment work for your body, and what's going to nourish you, and also for the clients to learn to look after their needs, because your family or partner's needs are very different than your needs. What do you need? What do you need to recover? And staying in your own lane, focusing on your own journey. Because I always say to him, like, you didn't come into my office for nothing. You're here for a reason. I only specialize in one thing. So it's about staying in your learning and working what's best for you. And trying to, I suppose, take out the noise or have the conversation. Like, like I actually had one girl and her mother yesterday, and like the conversation, the mother was worried and something happened that the mother done, which was diet culture, which was fine, no judgment, but the girl just called her out on it. You can't do that, and the mother was worried, I suppose. I don't want to be doing damage, but I said, well, she communicated to you, you listened, we're good.
Yeah, exactly.
It's giving the kids that communication as well, and the older adults, look, communicating, another older client, like she's, I suppose, the culture that she's in the work environment, it's not great, but she likes working in that arena. But there's a lot of emphasis on weight with certain people, and she just says, I just walk away now. I just walk away.
Yeah.
Not for me. And it's for some people, it is finding, a different job or something else, and I had clients probably like yourself who got over the binge eating, and my God, their life changed, their confidence changed, they changed their jobs, they thought they were going to be waited forever, and when they were able to find that freedom, they're like, oh, I deserve better, I'm not staying here. Because that relationship with food, they think because of the diet, what they learned, that there's something wrong with me, everyone else is doing it, but everyone else is not doing it. Either they've gone into an eating disorder or they're doing it behind closed doors. And when they have that freedom and their confidence grows and they're like, their life changes, they're like, oh no, I'm out of here, I deserve better. And it's so great to see that.
It is. Yeah, it is. Because again, it's so, there's so much shame with it, I think, particularly around binge eating, there's so much shame. And the shame is isolating. And like you said, and what's so remarkable as well, what often can happen is that the confidence grows as in doing the work and you get out of the binging and the body maybe didn't change much at all because that wasn't really actually the part of the
Yeah.
problem. That was what we were told or learned that is the problem. And also that's again, it's a tangible thing, I think, that it feels like, well, I think it's false illusion, but it feels like I can control my body if other situations, like the marriage isn't working, or the work situation is toxic, or other stressors. But again, my body is the problem, and if I could, if it would look a certain way, then everything else would magically kind of, fall into place. And usually, actually, people often tend to realize as well, particularly people who've been dieting for a long time, that they look back 5 years, 10 years, and they're like, oh yeah, but I was smaller then, but I wasn't happy then either. I still
Yeah.
thought my body was a problem, whether it was wrong or it needed to be fixed or be smaller. And that can be like, so then it's like, well, it's about food, it's not about food. It's about the body, it's not about the body, right?
Yeah. It's finding that, I suppose, that balance for the client. And like, I suppose, it's when I suppose treating a client, it's nutrition intervention, looking at the lifestyle, the stress, the coping skills, the relationships. Then you're looking at the self-esteem and the self-worth. Then you're looking at the body image. You're looking at the cognitive function and the thinking styles and the core beliefs. And then anything else that comes up around it. And you're kind of, and I have a visual, I suppose I have a printout that I show them so they can see it on a piece of paper. Oh, yes. Because it's all in their head. It's all in their head. But when they see it on a piece of paper, they're like, oh, yes, there. What do I need the most work on? And I suppose, like, that recovery is possible and help is out there. And I think, like you said at the start, is keep not like, I had to knock now I know it's different today. There is more help. But I remember knocking down so many doors years ago. And I think it was, and that's why I think that the spirit and the soul, like, there was something in me. No, there's something, you will get better. There's something there. Just keep knocking and keep doing it. And it did take years. And like, I'm not going to lie, it was years of hell. Like, not all, but it was good. And some of them were the best moments as well. But it was worth it in the end. It was worth facing those fears. And my body did change so much over the years. And that was fearful too, the unknown. But I just think that, you can recover and it's fully possible. The sooner you catch it, the better, but it does take time.
Yeah, it does take time. And then again, even if you're 20 years or 30 years into it, you still deserve support, and recovery is still possible, because we see it all the time. It's just, and it won't take 30 years to undo that either. You're building everything out of time, but everybody deserves support. And I, like you, I also do, a chat with people first. And if I don't feel like it's a good fit between us, knowing that you have other colleagues and peers, or somebody wants in-person support, my service is currently virtual, and it's nice to know, okay, if you're down sort of in the southeast, there's Michelle, she sees people in person, to send people to that. Or if I know somebody goes, right, I can do this nutrition part, but there is other bigger mental health pieces as well. You need a therapist on board, to work maybe on some of those things, because sometimes as well, people who maybe work with therapists on other areas of their life, or they have done those, and there isn't space to try to hold multiple things in the same room, right? If somebody is working through something else, and then this kind of popped up, and it's like, right, then it's probably better to have a separate space to explore those things as well, because otherwise it might get a bit confusing. So yeah, like the more we network as practitioners within the country as well, the more we can kind of cross refer where it isn't a good fit. Or I've had conversations with parents with younger people than I would see, and I'm like, okay, here is people that I know that are maybe near you that would work with younger people like yourself under the age of 16, and they can see them in person. And here is, if you want to go through the public system, this is what it looks like. Here is free support. Here's, Bodywise offers some support, connected with people who do support for parents. So it's great, that the support is there, but it can be difficult to find, because again, I think you don't go looking for it until you have to, right? It's not like,
you don't, and sometimes they don't know where to look. And I had a client who was bulimic, because I want to look at the positives. Well, even though I know we're looking, for me, I know we're looking at positive. I had a client who was bulimic for 10 years, and it wasn't about me. She had one session. Now, we'd done 8 sessions altogether, but she had one session and she was ready to hear what I had to say, and she stopped. She was just in her life. She's about to want to get pregnant. She just needed to hear it. And I don't own that. That was her. We still went and done the 8 sessions just to make sure. So there is miracles as well when it comes to timing as well. It's like, I'm ready.
Absolutely. I think so. And I feel that as well sometimes when people come for, like I've had a few experiences like that too. It was like they were just ready, and it just happened to be maybe how you phrased the question or how you position things, and it just landed because the space was there, and it was like, all right, I never thought about it. That makes sense. I'm okay. And then for other people, they might come and like there's a lot of ambivalence there, and you're like, well, and maybe it's too hard, and people drop in and drop out. And I think I'm trying to be okay with that too, because it is each person's, it's not my journey, it's not your journey, right? It's there, we're there to support people alongside them. So that's okay too. And because it's not easy either. Like, it is hard work. And I, like yourself, Michelle, I firmly believe that it is always worth it's always worth pursuing recovery and having a better relationship with food and your body. And also that it can take us into a real self-discovery journey too. That's what I feel for my own experience, you know, that you learn more about yourself.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Mine was a very healing journey about, I suppose, on the holistic level, you know, there was so much more. And I wouldn't change it. So I'm very blessed.
Yeah. So, Michelle, I think there's been so many, you've said so many wise things, and you've talked a lot about nourishment. And of course, the podcast is called Joyful Nourishment. So I'm curious about, what does joyful nourishment mean to you specifically, you personally?
Joyful nourishment means to me being around good people, especially families, partner, nature, and then obviously good food. So again, have I eaten enough? Have I had my fats, protein, and carbs? Am I satisfied? And that took me years to do that. And I know the foods I like and nourishment, but I just think having an environment that nourishes your soul, and then obviously your physical body. And I'm very blessed that during this work, I do that. And then movement for me, I like to be out in nature and water and sea swims. That's what I love.
Yeah, lots of things. And I like what you said as well, like it's important not just to nourish our physical bodies, but also nourishing our souls. And I feel like sometimes they can get starved or missed also in this whole process. So bringing that in, that's another layer of that. And yeah, lucky for you. You're living in the sunny southeast with beautiful coastlines too. And we have very nice things here in Mayo. So, but I'm not that close to the coast. So, I'm gonna try to get out. Nature is a great healer too. Yeah. So thank you, Michelle, for sharing all your wisdom and insights and experiences with us. And where can people find you if they're interested in working with you or just finding out more of what you do?
Well, thanks very much for having me. It's been great to connect, even though I know we've been connected on social media for quite a while. So my website is www.michelleogorman.com, or you can send an email into info@michelleogorman.com.
Okay. And you have an Instagram account too, right?
I have an Instagram account, yes. So it's specialist_eating_disorders. And my phone number is 086 020 5172. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we'll link to the website and Instagram and the account so people will find you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening. The Joyful Nourishment podcast is produced with no financial backing, and your support means a lot to keep this project going. If this episode has been helpful in any way, please consider liking, subscribing, or leaving a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. This helps the podcast to be found by others. And of course, you can also forward this episode to a friend whom you think may benefit. Find out more about what I offer on straightforwardnutrition.com, and if you're interested in working with me, please use the link in the show notes to book in for a free initial 30-minute session. And finally, please come and join the Joyful Nourishment community over on Substack, unless you're there already, by subscribing to my newsletter using the link below.